evening and welcome to Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates, presented by the Dallas Examiner. I'm Molly Finch Belt, publisher of the Dallas Examiner. The Dallas Examiner has presented Monday Night Politics for over 12 consecutive years prior to elections. The Dallas Examiner does not endorse candidates. We seek to inform the community so that when they go to the polls, they are informed voters. All candidates who provide their email addresses on their applications when they file for office are invited to participate in Monday Night Politics. Monday Night Politics is not a debate, it's a forum designed to inform the community about the candidates' qualifications, their platform, etc. We could not present Monday Night Politics without our sponsors, who are nonprofit organizations, and they do not endorse either. In addition to Monday Night Politics, our website, www.dallasexaminer.com, has a section for voter education. Here you'll find current information about voting. Visit www.dallasexaminer.com. I would be remiss if I didn't mention two people who have worked with Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates behind the scenes for over 12 years. The first person is Robin Jimenez, Vice President of Production and Editorial at the Dallas Examiner. The other person is Christy Thomas, Monday Night Politics Advisory Committee. We are happy tonight to have as our moderator Charles O'Neill. Charles is president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, and he was the first editor for the Dallas Examiner when the newspaper was founded by my father in 1986. Thank you for attending the forum tonight.
And good evening and welcome again to tonight's edition of Monday Night Politics, brought to you by the Dallas Examiner. We have an action-packed and a tight schedule for tonight because we've had to add in a candidate from last week's forum, candidate for Attorney General. So this week we have with us today, and we'll start with our candidates for Lieutenant Governor. We'll have then Attorney General candidate, and then we've got three judicial races: District Judge, 255th District, 282nd District, and the 204th District. And we'll cap off the evening with our candidates for Governor of the state of Texas. So without further ado, we have tonight with us as candidates for the office of Lieutenant Governor, we have Ms. Carla Braley and Mr. Mike Collier. As we were noted earlier today, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll have 2 minutes for responses as well. So without further ado, Ms. Braley, you're on. 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Hello, audience. I am so glad to be with you and so delighted that you all have taken upon yourself to remain connected in the world of politics, particularly in the state of Texas. I am Carla Braley, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. I am a mother. I'm an educator. I am a long-time committed Democrat, and more so than anything, I am a fearless fighter for all Texans. My entire life has been dedicated to public service. Over the past 3.5 years, I served as the vice chair of the Texas Democratic Party, traveling across the state, Zooming, flying, whatever we had to do to ensure that we elected local candidates to make sure that they are serving in a way that we are pushing for democratic values. And that's what I believe is at stake right now, democracy. We have leadership that have failed us from the left to the right. We have leadership that has not provided guidance in a way that is going to restore justice in our state. I really believe that our rights are on the line, and I could no longer stand on the sidelines. For me, I absolutely believe that we must address education so that we have the highest quality, inclusive education that moves towards a pipeline for our workforce. And then we must address healthcare. It is absolutely essential that we not only expand healthcare, but we make sure that premiums are more affordable. And lastly, While I can discuss many more priorities, we must deal with the priorities of protecting our rights in this state. I am Carla Braley, running for Lieutenant Governor to ensure that we have a Texas for tomorrow. Texas is our home, and I want to join you to make sure that we have one Texas united.
Thank you very much. Mr. Collier.
Guess we gotta clean it together.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mike Collier, candidate for Texas Lieutenant Governor. Carl, it's nice to see you. We Zoom all over the state. It's nice to see you in person. I ran against Stan Patrick for Lieutenant Governor last time, and I came close, and I'm very passionate that the next Lieutenant Governor must be a Democrat. We have so many problems in this state, and particularly in the black community, and so much of it comes down to money. Now, in my professional life, I'm an accountant, and when I think about solving the inequity in public education, which is profound and wrong, morally wrong. We have schools that are quite successful, but we have schools that need help. And the question is always, where are you going to get the money to do it? Expanding Medicaid. We have to expand Medicaid. We must also be creating jobs and creating economic opportunity for all Texans, not just for Texans in some communities, but for all Texans. And then that leads to a discussion around infrastructure, which is so important. Financial infrastructure so that people can get to those jobs. Grocery stores and food and the rest. We are not investing properly in every community in this state. We are not investing in black communities. And as a financial professional, as an accountant, I know where the money is. And being successful as Lieutenant Governor and achieving these objectives, it's so much about making sure that we argue the case and find the money and put the money to work where it's really going to help people. We're such a prosperous state, but not everybody is enjoying equally in that prosperity. And we must protect the right to vote, and the reason why that's related is that the current Lieutenant Governor is not doing his job, and you're angry, and you ought to be angry. And that's why he doesn't want you to vote. And so that's why we must protect the right to vote and go to the polls and change the Lieutenant Governor and then start investing properly in all communities in the state. And I'm very passionate about it. My name is Mike Collier, very honored to be here this evening, candidate for Texas Lieutenant Governor.
Mr. Collier, stay there, and you'll take the first question.
Okay.
The Lieutenant Governor's office is characterized as the most powerful political seat in the state of Texas. Ms. Braley said that we've suffered from failed leadership. Kind of outline, if you will, some of the ways that powerful seat has failed the state of Texas.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the Lieutenant Governor is
And you'll have that
truly one of the most, if not the most powerful position in the state because Lieutenant Governor sets the agenda for the legislature. So all matters related to policy, all matters related to the budget, start with the legislature, and the Lieutenant Governor drives that discussion. Our current incumbent, that Ms. Braley and I are working so hard to defeat, sets the wrong agenda. Our current Lieutenant Governor does not set the right agenda. He is not allowing the legislature to work on funding public education. He has prevented the legislature from expanding Medicaid. He's done nothing to fix the grid, and that cost a lot of people their lives, and it cost a lot of money to fix their homes. He's doing nothing about investing in all of our communities, such as the black community. Instead, what he's doing, and there's so many other problems, instead what he's doing is finding incendiary issues that make people angry and pit one Texan against another. Some call it culture wars. And he is not doing the job. And the Lieutenant Governor is the most powerful position in this state, must do his job, which is why this Lieutenant Governor, the incumbent, must go. And we must elect a new Lieutenant Governor, and it ought to be a Democrat.
Thank you. Same question to you, Ms. Braley. And the question was, in an office as powerful as is the Lieutenant Governor's office in the state of Texas, you mentioned in your opening that we suffer from failed leadership in that position.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for the question. You know, the Lieutenant Governor for a number of years has been noted as being the most powerful position in the state of Texas, primarily because not only does the lieutenant governor serve in a capacity when the governor is not available, one. But two, the lieutenant governor sets the agenda. And three, more importantly than anything, the lieutenant governor has the power to ensure that we have the most prominent, most well-read leaders to be appointed to each of the committees. And that is where so many of the decisions are made in terms of where a bill will actually reside and how that bill will go throughout the legislation. And so the legislator. And so we have to make sure that we do not play politics with people's lives, and that is what we're seeing in the state of Texas, that we're choosing to be divisive rather than to join and make sure we have leaders that are appointed to these positions that are actually dealing with issues like the power grid, to make sure that we have the proper oversight, but not just oversight, but also plan, and how we plan to do that, and how we plan to be transparent with the information that is dispersed to Texans. But more so than anything, the lieutenant governor can ensure that our rights are protected and that the funding that we receive in schools, that it is enhanced. I was listening to one of the constituents to say that it's been 21 years since staff in the teaching area have received a promotion or increase in their cost of living. And so those are the things that we absolutely must change. And instead of going for cultural wars, we have to make sure that we put people at the center. And that is what the lieutenant governor has the ability to be able to do.
Okay, so the next question to you, and then to you, Mr. Collier, is among the almost incendiary kinds of legislation that made its way through this past legislative session, probably among the most damaging to a black community is gerrymandering. How do we fix that once that genie is out of the bottle, so to speak? We've got districts now drawn that will actually put a cap on the number of black elected representatives that we can elect from the state, either House and or Senate.
Well, I believe that it's several things that we can do. One, we have to vote. I know that sounds like it's not the best response, but the reality is we have to vote to make sure that we retain our vote. The reality is what is happening in the state of Texas is not new. If we understand the historical nature in which many of politicians that have not necessarily been on the side, and I'm going to say in this sense, communities of color, that they have worked to suppress the representation primarily in the black community. I would say black and brown communities, because what's at stake, it makes sure that we are going to have a curriculum that is going to deal with equity. We're going to have housing to make sure that proper loans, not only proper loans, but also that people can maintain them. And so what is at stake is not only voting, but we have to make sure that we bring others to the table in terms of stakeholders. We have to make sure that these discussions are happening at the grassroots level. Oftentimes, community as well as faith leaders are not brought to the table, but having a clear-cut understanding of what is happening on the ground. But I tell you, for me, Charles, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we exercise our vote, even though we know that there is a precedent. At one point or another, we have to make up our mind that by any means necessary, we will vote, because our vote is our voice. And that is how we'll be able to overturn a lot of these divisive and extremist agenda that is being moved forward, because this is only the beginning. I really believe that we are at an anti-democratic movement, and it's happening right here in the state of Texas. And we have a lieutenant governor that has stated over and over that part of the problems of Texas is dealing with the black community.
Outstanding. Yes, sir. Thank you.
There's no question that the legislature redrew the congressional districts to make sure that black, brown, and Asian Texans do not have a say in government. It's morally reprehensible. It's racist. And there's no doubt and even Senator Kelseliger from Amarillo recently testified that it was done for that purpose. A Republican senator testified in court of law that it was done for that purpose. It's wrong. It's anti-democratic. I despise what they've done. Now, here's what we need to do to settle this. 11 other states have moved to an independent redistricting model where instead of the legislature drawing congressional districts for the sole purpose of retaining power, ignoring what it does to the voice of black and brown voters, instead you have a separate, independent, non-political commission drawing district lines so that everybody's vote and everybody's voice matters. 11 other states have done it. Texas must do it too. Only one elected official can make this happen, and that's the lieutenant governor, because the lieutenant governor can set the agenda, can get the vote out of the legislature, put it up to a vote by Texans, and then Texas will go to an independent redistricting model. Not only will that save democracy in Texas and give you a voice, which is essential, but the rest of the country will watch this. We have a huge problem with this, not just in Texas, but in many, many parts of the country where Republicans are trying to take away your vote and take away your voice, and we can't stand for that. And if Texas, when we win the battle for an independent redistricting commission, because we have a Democrat lieutenant governor who drives the point home and succeeds, many other states will follow. We will get credit for saving democracy, and that is so essential and a very, very important part of my agenda. Thank you.
And the next question to you,
Yes, please.
should you be successful in being elected? We've talked healthcare, we've talked education, we've talked voter suppression. What are the top 3 priorities you would make sure that the next legislature will address?
Yeah, what are the top 3 priorities of the next legislature? We've got to fix the grid because it's not working, and without a grid, we are in danger. We came very close in the state of Texas of having a complete electrical blackout, and if that happens, it would take weeks to restore it. We had many hundreds of Texans die. We had a lot of pipes burst. We had a lot of houses damaged. It cost an enormous amount of money. We have to fix the grid. We must expand Medicaid. That's a good deal. We should do that because people are working as hard as they can, the best job they can find. It's not their fault that they can't afford health care. The cost of health care has just gone up much more rapidly than wages, and so we have to expand Medicaid. We need to make sure that our education, if we don't get education right, we're not going to get anything right. I think we have a moral obligation to all of the young people in this state, not just the sons and daughters of the well-to-do, but everyone, to create a level playing field to make sure that everybody gets a great education, public education. And in black communities in particular, those funding formulas have been designed to starve your schools. I love teachers. I applaud teachers for working so hard and doing their best, but the state's not there for them, and that's not right. So we must change the funding formulas to make sure we get money into the public schools in black communities where it's needed, and that's how we're going to take this state to where we want to go morally.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Brady.
Well, I wish I could say that it was really just 3 priorities, but the reality is we are in a very bad place in this state. But there is hope. One of the most important things that I absolutely believe that we have to address is education. Education is our pipeline in many ways, and it should not be the pipeline to prison, but it should be the pipeline to enhancing the workforce of tomorrow. We have to make sure that students do not receive an education based on their zip code, and that we have equity in education in a way that they have exposure to various types of opportunities to go into, whether it's vocational education or to extend their education to 4-year universities. We have to make sure that that is afforded to students, whether they're in urban, suburban, or rural areas. Also, in terms of healthcare, we have to make sure that we are not leaving money on the table, because that is what's happening in the state of Texas. We have over $10 million that are there that we're not taking advantage of. We have to make sure that everyone has access to affordable healthcare regardless of where they are, and that even when people are working every day, they have to make sure that they actually have affordable premiums. We have to make sure that people are not necessarily robbing Peter to pay Paul after working to ensure that they can be have insurance. Then, we can talk about the power grid even as a resident of Texas, I am like so many other Texans. I was also impacted by the power grid. We have to make sure that we winterize everything that needs to happen, but we're also continue to plan. And last, I absolutely think that we have to address gun violence. At the end of the day, what we are facing as Texans, we can say no. We can have more conservative gun safety issues so that we can make sure that we are embracing the Second Amendment, but at the same time, we're making sure that we're saving lives in the state of Texas.
So, and unfortunately, we are pressed up against this clock, but we're going to use your closing statement for 2 minutes. But one of the questions that came in through Facebook was, so you can roll that into your closing statement, what will each candidate do specifically to fix the issues that they've identified? So.
Thank you for the question. One, I think it is absolutely necessary that we have the right leaders appointed to the committees. We cannot get around that. The reality is that whoever is elected, and I'm hoping that you will elect Carla Braley as your next lieutenant governor, that we will be able to work across the aisle, because that is how decisions are made. We're going to have civility in the Senate in the way that we have not had in quite some time. And so we're going to have to make sure that decisions that are made, they are made with people at the center. How we're going to do that? One, we need to rescind what has moved forward in terms of voting rights. We need to rescind what has moved forward in terms of the heartbeat bill that does not take in consideration a woman's right to choose. Gun safety, we know absolutely that there are things that we can do to make sure we have red flag alerts, that we cannot just have where any and everyone can carry a gun. We know that that has not proven to be the safest route in our state and also in other states. We have to be willing to look at best practices and mimic what some other states are doing. And lastly, we have to make sure that that we have an educational system that prepares students to make sure that they have a future in this state and that we have a workforce that they are trained to do. We can do those things in a way also that we have students and teachers that are equipped and trained to make sure that we have a very competitive virtual system that we can improve. I am Carla Braley. I am hoping that you work with me so that we can make sure that we have One Texans United, and you join with me that we can make a very historical mark by you electing the first African-American female to lead our state. And I am hoping that we can work together to ensure that our democracy continues and it is not at stake under this current leadership that we have. I'm Carla Braley, running for Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you very much. Scott?
Well, the things that Carla Braley and I talked about tonight are shared by the majority of Texans. When we talk about the importance of expanding Medicaid, when we talk about funding public education so that it's fair for all communities, when we talk about fixing the grid, when we talk about investing in communities, Texans actually want this. The problem is we aren't getting it out of the legislature. And the reason why the legislature isn't acting in a way that's in our best interest and your best interest is because the lieutenant governor blocks these things. He does not want these things to happen. So when we elect a Democrat lieutenant governor, then we'll organize the Senate and we'll begin to make progress on these things. You'll have committee assignments so that we do the right thing and expand Medicaid and fund public education and do the rest. Texans want change in the worst way, and they want a Democrat, in my opinion, they want a Democrat lieutenant governor so that we can drive and make these changes. It'll make such a big difference in people's lives. You know, when you think about the name Texas is actually friend. It means friend, it means ally. And where is the compassion, where is the empathy, where is the sense of community? It's gone and it needs to come back. A lieutenant governor who shares our values, who has a passion for every community, who's willing to make the case and make the investment so that we solve these problems will make a huge difference in the state. The lieutenant governor has that kind of power. My name is Mike Collier. I'm here humbly asking for your support and for your vote to be that next lieutenant governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for our candidates for Lieutenant Governor, Ms. Carla Braley and Mr. Mike Collier. Thank you so much for attending tonight.
Thank you.
We'll take a very short break and then we'll hear from Mr. Lee Merritt, our candidate for Attorney General.